We're back in session and continuing the budget meetings, and we are fortunate to have with us JFS. And I'm going to let you make introductions, you and your guest, and let's begin.
Okay, good morning, Commissioners. Bob Anderson with Job and Family Services. I'm joined by Jen Wanshade. She's our business administrator, and she actually put our presentation together and worked up all the numbers for us. Really, what I did is the first few slides is really just kind of an outline of where we've been over the past or this year with some of our programs, and then getting into a few more specifics as we go forward. Just recapping some of our programs, you'll see the Medicaid, SNAP, and OAF programs. Those are on our public assistance side of the house. You'll see our monthly averages. They've gone up primarily because of additional federal dollars, because of some of the changes that were made during the pandemic and those kind of things. But for Medicaid, for example, on a monthly average, we're serving 18,100 people. That is up approximately 964 recipients per month.
You say 18,000 people. So if you have a house full of 4, it counts 4.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, and these are going to be Medicaid, so the insurances for children all the way through adults and nursing home and those kind of things. So anything that Medicaid would pay for as medical insurance is included in this number. So we are distributing, or we're determining eligibility that's resulting in about $16 million a month in benefits for residents of Delaware County. A lot of that money is paid to nursing homes and other medical procedures for children and adults. Our application timeliness on that is 94%, which is up over previous years, so we're doing a pretty good job. Until open enrollment started, we were pretty much caught up on all of our public assistance, but now we're, our workflow's filling up, but we're just working through those as we go. On the SNAP side, 5,900 monthly recipients. That number's up about 200 people per month. Again, with some of the changes in eligibility and things that brought on by federal regulations, we did see an increase over the last 18 months to 2 years on that, and we're seeing about $1.3 million per month in benefits being issued. Our timeliness is 98%, which is very good for that, and our QC is at 100%. So when the state comes and looks at our quality control and how we're performing, we're at 100% on those. Wow. And then OAF. That's 95% timeliness. That program, because of the pandemic and thing, is kind of
OWF,
yes.
Ohio
works first.
Oh, okay, great.
So we assign people receiving benefits if they meet certain criteria. We assign them to job search, or they have to work so many hours a week or per month, and that's where we are there. During COVID, it was kind of hard to place people because we couldn't get them out there. But that's starting to ramp back up a little bit.
Okay.
Moving to our next workforce stats, and we've been very busy in our workforce department. CCMEP and OJT, which is on-the-job trainings, we've been very busy with that. In the past, we actually brought the CCMEP program in-house rather than contracting it out. We added a couple staff members, and we're seeing better performance there. As you see, we currently have 31 active participants. We've exited 16, and as we work through, we have 5 in training, and 6 that have completed training, and 36 of the people we've worked with are currently employed. CCMEP works with 16 to 24-year-olds. It can be a TANF or WIOA funded program, depending on eligibility. We work with the school systems and other referrals, trying to hit that area, that age group, trying to get them kind of trained or employed before they kind of just fall into our programs and can't get back out. On the job training, that's where we've really stepped it up. These are WIOA dollars that come from formerly known as Area 7, now Gobi. A lot of funding has been pushed to Gobi that's then redistributed to the counties that are members. And we've been working with, we have 6 employers that we've signed contracts with. 4 of those employers have used our services that we're doing on-the-job trainings. We do the screening, we make sure they're eligible, and we run them through the process. And the goal of this is it allows employers to take a little bit more of a risk on someone, to bring them in, to get them trained, further their employment, and then it gets them off our benefits. So we kind of work them through the process. Currently, we have 34 active participants. We had 30 people complete the program, and 7 were terminated. We're operating at about an 81% success rate when we bring people into the program, that they're actually completing the program. One thing that I like what we're doing is we are not reimbursing unless people complete the program. So the employers are they're really partnering with us on this, that if they bring someone in that exits before the training is complete, it's on them.
Oh, okay.
If the people make it through the program and then it's a success, we will reimburse up to 50% of wages for 90 days. The program actually allows us to go up to 6 months or $8,000, but most of these trainings are a 90-day program, so that's where we kind of drew the line there. Most of the ones that are coming through are limited to about $3,900 to $4,000 that we will reimburse the employer.
The employer, that's what
Yes.
I wondered. Okay,
So-
who?
Playing devil's advocate, do employers play a game where 6 months and they get rid of the person, they do it again, or after their reimbursement stops?
I have not seen that, because right now, so many employers are struggling to find qualified, trained staff. We have one company that is actually, the reimbursements that we're putting in, they're actually reinvesting and retaining employees. So they're working on programs with not only the people we're putting through, but they're reinvesting the funds within their company just to retain employees. That's how it should work. I just haven't seen where people are letting them go and doing over, because it's so expensive and time consuming to train staff.
In a county this size, 31 participants doesn't seem like a lot.
It's not. When I started, we had 2. So we're gradually growing the program. It was something we just didn't invest in. Eligibility is a big piece of that. Finding people that want to work is, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of moving
Yeah.
parts to it. Our staff has done a tremendous job reaching out to employers.
Yeah.
Probably our 2 biggest, emergency plumbing. They've been very successful training plumbers with our assistance. Sam Dong is another one, and actually they have been kind of selling it to the other manufacturers out there that are struggling. We've kind of just jumped in with Acoustifiber as well, and we're working through some issue, some eligibility, some of the refugees coming in having proper paperwork and those kind of things too. But really anyone we serve, if they're working, and again, it kind of takes off the SNAP and Medicaid kind of benefits, and that's our ultimate goal.
Do you feel that a lot of employers do know about the program? Or is there an outreach that you do? Or
we
I know
actually
you're
have-
busy, but,
We have a staff member that's an employer representative.
okay.
And so she's members of the chambers, she
Oh,
goes to the
okay.
businesses. She's done a really nice job getting the word out.
Okay.
Some businesses just don't want to deal with the government red tape that's
Mhm.
involved.
Mhm.
We do most of the paperwork for people, but it's still a process. And, we try to keep the program going. For example, companies want to hire and start someone Monday, and we get the paperwork Friday. And, in some cases, we have to tell people, if you really want to hire them, and we'll work with you on other ones. So the timing doesn't always work out.
Okay.
I think staff does a really good job. We've kind of put a 3-day limit that we need at least 3 days to run it through our system and get all the money in order and determine the eligibility, and that's been working out.
Okay, good.
So for a county this size, having 6 employers, not a lot, but we continue to work towards that. And
Sure.
I think as these other businesses are successful and they talk to each other, that's where we've seen other people come on recently. And then we have to manage our funds, because it's not unlimited funds that we get from Gobi, it's almost a first come, first serve, but we also want to assist other employers coming on. So we kind of have to manage that throughout the year. Recently, we requested additional funds from GOBI. When we go to the meetings, they're sitting on 1, 2, and 3 year funding right now that the state's given them. And we just have to request, so we received our allocations, and we kind of get a first and second year funding, and we've been spending that through investments of the training, supportive services, am I missing one? And education. So we're working through that, and we've requested additional, because again, if we can help our local employers, if we can get people off the rolls,
Yeah.
that's where we want to be, and GOBI wants the counties investing in these things.
How do you source the participants for this program? Do you do it, or do the employers do it, or?
Most of the time, the employers are interviewing and identifying, and then they'll refer them to us before hire.
Okay.
We have to determine eligibility before they start employment. Now, we will help, we'll do the postings for the positions, we'll even kind of refer, but we have a program, we want their HR departments to basically interview and say this is a good candidate, and we'll determine eligibility.
Because that's as you know, that's the big challenge businesses face, is getting people that'll show up and work.
Right.
And so any way we can help, I mean, this helps, but I don't know if we can help source eligible employees more or not, but.
Yeah, through our OMJ Center, we do everything we can as far as referrals, not only to the employers, but job seekers that we have openings here, and we encourage them. We help them write their resumes. We'll help them practice interviews. If there's training that's lacking, we can assist with that as well. But I think recently, most of the ones we have were referred to us by the employer.
I guess that seems backwards what I thought. So it's basically the employer trying to find a way to get half the salary paid or compensation. I assume they work the other way. We identified people and encouraged the employers to, so.
We do a little bit of both, but I think we would do a lot of eligibility. I mean, and we'll refer those out, and in the past, we've even encouraged people to let businesses know that they could receive benefit by hiring, kind of that interview process, but it just seems to work out that most of the time the employer is the one identifying who's a good fit for them and who they are willing to hire, and then it comes back to us.
So I'm curious, you're kind of in this field, why do you think there's such a shortage of eligible employees versus a couple years ago?
I wish I had a good answer. I know GOBI, they did a study, and they were showing, and I can forward that, I can pull that up, but they were showing just males between like the age of 25 and 55. The numbers just aren't working like they used to. They're just out of the workforce. I'm not sure anyone's identified why.
Yeah, that's.
I think we know why.
That's consistent. Yeah, I mean, we can suppose, but that's consistent with what we're seeing too. There's fewer eligible workers.
Right.
And the reason.
I think there's 4 million less people in the workforce than there was before COVID. I'll say it, these programs discourage people from working. And people take advantage of that, my opinion.
Yeah, and that's there is, and I don't know if John forwarded that, but I can't forward. I forget who they had to do this study, but it was kind of fascinating, some of the things. But again, I'm not sure the answer of why is there. It's just the trends they're seeing, and it's things like that.
Yeah, this is our intuition as to why versus an actual.
Right, and even some of our programs, we actually don't put them in until we know they're going to start working, and sometimes people just no-show, or they show for a day or two and then they don't go back. And
Oh yeah.
Describe the kind of jobs we're talking about with these businesses. What, I assume they're kind of entry-level positions?
Entry-level manufacturing, blue-collar kind of positions. Normally those, because of eligibility, that's who's going to be eligible, is kind of that pay grade. People who are on our benefits and things like that. We will assist on higher level positions. Normally that's more of a job seeker, employer looking for a person and those, but not necessarily through the job training of those. If someone needs some kind of training to remain in their job. That's an incumbent worker, we will do those as well. Or if they need additional training, maybe to promote within the company, we can assist in those. But most of ours, I'm gonna say, are more of an entry-level blue collar.
Where do the employees come from?
We're
I mean,
seeing right now.
Are they out of market?
I'm
Out of
sorry?
country? Are they out of market, out of country?
We're actually seeing employers hire people from Marion and Franklin County right now.
Franklin County, really?
Yeah.
So we would pay them under our program if they're in another, they reside in another county?
Because we're benefiting the
The
employer,
local
which
employer.
is a local.
Okay.
Right now, Acosta Fiber is working with refugees that are coming in, that they're identifying.
You say refugees, do you also mean illegals, or they have to be illegal, and be in this country legally?
Yeah, we need, and I can't explain it, an I-94 form, which basically I think says they're legal, and then within 30 days, they have to have a social security card and move through the process that way. So, we have certain criteria to make them eligible, and we have to follow that. To my knowledge, they're not illegal. That we have all the proper documentation.
If they do not have their social security card, we can't enter them in the system and get them the benefits for,
Or should we?
for the on-the-job training program.
But, some of these positions, those are the people that they can recruit. But again, if they're coming in, the company's successful in getting their orders filled and is keeping people off our rolls, that's our intent with these programs. Jenna showed me no. So as far as the performance we were talking earlier, we do have a 1-year follow-up. So, even as far as not only completing training, but we do follow up to make sure people are still employed. They may have moved on from that employer because they gained valuable skills, they got them employed somewhere else, but we do follow up with that as well. If they're unemployed, then of course we're gonna try to work with them and get them back employed. The next slide is just our PRC services, and this is just kind of showing where we've expended our funding. We've never spent a lot of funding with our PRC program, other than the big blue, which was school readiness. You'll see family preservation is our highest of $27,800, and those are services that maintain children in their home. So that could be anything from helping with utilities and rent, anything that we may get a call and have to remove a child. So we use our PRC, which is TANF dollars, federal TANF dollars, to assist family and children. The next one is the vehicle repair. That's primarily so people can either go to training or work. That will, if they have an issue with their car and they're saying they can't get to work, and we can verify that they're working the required number of hours a week and those kind of things, then that's a program that we will assist them so they can continue working. Kinship are the grandparents, family, friends that take in children rather than them coming into our care. And we actually, 2 years ago, I think, we received special funding for that, that we can, for the first 4 months, assist based on the child's income, so they're just gonna be TANF eligible. But we can do anything from supportive services, so if a grandparent brings a child in the home but they have no clothing, maybe they need a crib, or any other things that they would require to take a child in their home, we can purchase those. And we can also provide childcare for those first months, and then if the caregiver qualifies after that, we could continue. You'll see we only do $4,000. In the past, our allocation has been about $200,000. We just either have people that don't ask or don't qualify for these funds, but the funding's there. This was kind of a way for the state. For years, they've struggled to assist kinship caregivers. So they came up with this and they put it in our PRC plan. Still kind of limits it because of the eligibility piece, but if it keeps children with a relative or friend and out of our care, that's the purpose there. Employment and training is just that. People, we kind of leverage our funding, our WIOA dollars that come from GOBI and our TANF funding. If they qualify for TANF and we can put them through TANF, we would do that, so we can use our WIOA dollars for people who don't. And then the other ones are kind of small. The fuel, we will give someone basically a tank of gas for the first week of work. So once they draw their paycheck, then they're buying their own, but if someone qualifies. And then school readiness, we had COVID dollars that came in. And that's the 120, and we basically did a school clothing program. And we worked with the Coles here on 36, 37. We had vouchers and people that qualified to take their children and get new school clothing and other needs for school readiness. Then we're into our children's services. I'm pretty happy about this. So you'll see the blue represents the number of days that congregate care or residential care, so that's group homes, network homes, those kind of things. We had 1,761 days, and if you look at the other one, that amounted to $874,000 for those days. But the green, we had 9,246 in our local foster homes, which amounted to 96,500. We have seen a big switch where we are actually placing more children locally, which is, of course, is better for the children, for their families. It's keeping them in the area. We can work on reunification, keeps them in their school. And then dollar-wise, it's a lot more affordable with a local home than a residential or a group home. We are looking at about $170,000 savings this year from last year because of how the children have been placed. So Children's Services has done a really nice job recruiting local foster homes and placing and retaining children in local foster homes. Again, good for the kids and it's good for our budget. The next slide is just kind of our workload in Children's Services, and it's just a comparison of 2020 to 2021. Our 21 numbers are through October 21st.
The end of October.
Oh, end of October, sorry. And you'll just see the comparison. So in 2020, we had almost 1,600 calls, referrals that came into the office. This year, we're already up to 1,745, and we still had a couple months to go. The new cases are the cases we've screened in, that we actually screened and investigated. So you'll see last year we did 409. This year, again, with 2 months left, we're at 333. We had, and I'm just going to focus on 21, so we had 28 new placements, and that just means during this year, we had 28 children that came into our care at any time. 4 of those went to residential, and then 24 to our local homes. So again, that's really good that we're focused on our local homes and we're being able to provide services locally. And our ongoing cases, 30 transferred over to ongoing, and that was 67 children receiving care. So there's ongoing cases could have more than one child. Recently, we took in a sibling group of, I believe, 6 and another sibling group of 5. So when our numbers were looking really good, we added 11, I think, in a matter of about a week and a half. And of course, then we're working on, is there a kinship placement, reunification, and those kind of things. When I was over, I think last week, we do have 6 adoptions that we've completed this year, and we have 2 more pending. And I think that leaves us with just a couple of permanent custody children. We do anticipate some more coming in after the first year for permanent custody, but when Lynn was here and her staff, they do a very nice job of placing and matching that the adoptions are happening, and we're finding homes for children. This is just, last year, we were approved for an attorney, and I think that's made a big difference for what we're doing. I've heard from Judge Hemanowski and Katie Stenman and others who are very pleased with the work of our attorney. I do think that's helping us with our staffings, keeping less children screened in, the hearings and those kind of things. You'll kind of see, this is where her workload was, and this is going to tie into an ask later. But we have one person who's sitting in on all of our staffing, so when a child or there's a screening coming in, what our next steps, not only is it a supervisor and worker and most of the time our administrator, but now the attorney's in there and can represent the legal side, and we're kind of pose more options there. And this is just kind of working through, you know, she's continuing with training. She's only had to ask the prosecutor 6 times to cover. She's conducted, and I believe she started in March or April.
April 12th.
There you go, April 12th. 249 hearings that she sat in and the prep time with that. She also does adult protective services, and you'll see that she's had to file on 32 children, 3 adults. She's dealing with records requests, and a lot of those are, we can only release information in certain circumstances. So she's reviewing the legal side of if someone's asking for a children's services case, what we can or cannot. As director, I can deem if it's in the best interest of the child to release files. Normally that's going to law enforcement if they're doing an investigation, possibly to a caregiver or something along those lines. But she looks into that before we just say yes or no. And then of course she attends a lot of the meetings. So I can't thank the board enough for approving that. I think it has really worked out. We are definitely keeping her busy. She came from CASA. She was with CASA here in Delaware. She then was in Franklin County for a couple years and came back to Delaware.
Great.
And she's doing a very nice job. The next slide then is just kind of an overview, more, I guess, budgetary. We made a lot of changes, and when I say we, I mean Jen. I made a lot of changes to our actual county budget. You'll see we have 37 fewer lines, or org keys, I'm assuming. And we just consolidated things. One example is we had various salary lines, and when we talk about cost pools. We have a shared cost pool, which basically is someone like Jen or myself, that we are paid from all agency funds. Then we have a public assistance cost pool, and that's our income maintenance worker and workforce people. And then we have our social services cost pool, which is children's services and childcare. So that's kind of how we talk as far as JFS budget language. Within those cost pools, the salary lines were all broken out. So we had 2 childcare people with their own salary line, and then we had our social service workers, and we just started consolidating those. It actually saves our staff time when they have to work in our system called CFIS and reconciling and things like that. It's really not going into a different fund, it's just bringing them into the county lines that makes it a little easier for us. I think we had the same thing in some of our maybe supplies or contract lines as well. The funding was all coming from there, but it was just all spread out. So we're kind of condensing those to make our lives a little easier. And it really helps our fiscal specialist as she's working in the county side of budget and then CFIS. Then moving across our local funding, and this is kind of the general fund dollars that we receive. The first one is the maintenance of effort. This is the 4-year average that is determined for children's services. Normally that goes into operating, but primarily into foster placement. It's $1,112,500, which is an increase of $187,500. So a couple years ago, when they passed the state budget, they came up with a formula that pretty much doubled the money we received from the state for protective services. But when doing that, they came up with this maintenance of effort that they didn't want counties to stop providing funding just because they were increasing funding, because the ask was always, we never receive enough. So they look back 4 years, they average that out, and then each county has to provide that. What we will see is this number is going to start leveling out and gradually coming back down, probably in the next year or 2. But we'll probably hover around that $950 to $1 million in a couple years, unless the state changes their formula again.
So if we're paying more next year than we paid last year, how does the average come down? Because you're averaging with bigger numbers.
When I first started, the county replenished our fund with $2 million. That's going to drop off. So we're going to be more, once that's gone, is that next year that that's going to be off the 4 years?
Maybe one more.
Okay. When that number drops off, then it's going to kind of come down, because we're looking more of those averages in the million, 1.2 range instead of that $2 million.
As I remember, that was a one-time thing because it was a shortfall or something.
Yes.
So we really got penalized for that.
Yeah, right after, about 6 months after we did that, the state came up with this formula. I didn't know about it when I asked. But I mean, what it has done, it allows us to be, stable in our fund, to ensure that we have the placement. A lot of counties, actually, I was invited to speak at the CCAO conference in December, regarding children's services and the funding for counties and things like that. Knock on wood, but I've seen directors lose their job because of children's services, because the funding and always asking commissioners for more money. There was one not too long ago that happened to. And, we're fortunate here, but some of these small counties, in the past, I've showed numbers, and I always use Highland County, which is a very small county. We have 47 children in our care right now. Highland County probably has over 100. They definitely don't have the financial resources, and they definitely don't have near the population we have. It's just how their court rules on things and how they do their work, but it causes a huge strain on their budget. This allows us to kind of maintain, to add staff, to get the trainings. Hopefully that's beneficial, not only to our staff, but then beneficial to our families and our children as well. The other piece from general fund is the mandated share operating costs, the $466,000. That number was set prior to my arrival. We haven't asked for more. I don't see a need to ask for anything more than that. And that, again, just allows us to operate with current staff, and kind of provide any trainings or cover increases and things like that. The next allocation, and this is something, and across the bottom is kind of neat. So the allocation management, that was something big that we started, when I arrived, when Jen came in, not long after I did, but really working with our federal and state funds, keeping an eye on those, maximizing those dollars, with the hope of reducing over time the need for local dollars. Along the bottom, you'll see in 2018, we had a ceiling excess of $426,000. And for June of 22, we're projecting that there will not be any ceiling excess. So by managing our RMS, random moment samples, the way we code some of our billings, it's all getting put back on federal dollars or state dollars. And that's our goal, is to, those funds are collected and redistributed to us to provide services, and that's where we want to charge it off first. And Jen and Steven and others have done a really good job. Our staff is doing a very nice job with our RMS hits. That's just basically how the state and federal government allocate our time on what program we're working on, and it's really just a training in-house. Someone may be sitting at their desk on a phone call, and they can allocate that to 4 different programs. We just have to make sure they're picking the program where the funding is allocated, as opposed to a program that they just are used to hitting, but we don't want to overspend those. So it's just a constant education there. And then the maximizing, underutilized grants. We had some grants we just really never coded anything to in the past that are qualifying expenditures, so we're just, again, maximizing the dollars and kind of just digging in and putting the funding where the allocations are, and doing a very nice job there. The other changes for our budget, and these are more the position side, looking at a couple retirements coming up after the first of the year. Jill Cook, our program administrator, is going to be retiring in May, after 3 years in Delaware County, but 30 years in JFS. And so, we would like to replace her. I actually would like to bring her replacement in prior to her leaving to give them time to kind of see what she's doing. Believe it or not, we are still working on our shared services side of the house. The state is finally moving on that. We're going to switch our shared service group as soon as the state tells us we can. And Jill's working on that, and I'd like her replacement to kind of be up and running, and that's why I'd like a little overlap there. Social service worker 3s, we actually had a couple people resign just within the last few weeks, replacing them. We're scrambling right now. The number of calls and cases we're doing, we're just down in staff, and we just need to get those replaced. Throughout the state, every meeting I go to, this is a topic of discussion, that people cannot retain employees. You know, it's every business out there. Social service workers, the burnout, the requirements to do the job is very hard. We actually had one recent that went to the Board of DD because of the hours. She had set hours. We had another one that went to a court system in another county. They'd been doing it for a while, and they were just burnt out. And so they were going that way. As far as, and we have one lower, but the IM workers, there's a couple counties I've met with, they said 90% of their staff has under 6 months of experience.
Oh, boy.
Which I do not know how they operate with that. We have been fortunate. We do have someone resigning and taking a new job at the end of this week, but we've been very fortunate. I think probably our least experienced person in IM now is probably 3 years, and we want to retain them. Trying to recruit them and train them and get them up to speed is difficult, so we do everything we can to retain not only our IM staff but all staff, and so far so good. The social service trainer QC currently have a person who's still considered an income maintenance worker 3 that's doing more of the QC and a lot of special projects, considered to be eligible for bargaining unit. I would really like to post a position there that is more of a management level position that brings her out of that she can actually train and supervise staff as opposed to a bargaining position. I'm not looking at bringing anyone from the outside. This would just be more of a promotion internally. She's been with the agency for 14 years and does an excellent job. I just think kind of our hands are tied a little bit because of the classification of the position. It would not result in a lot of additional expense, and just be kind of where they would fall in the table or the wage bands and those kind of things. Staff attorney, with the workload, with the county growing, I am requesting a second staff attorney. Nicole has done an excellent job on the children's services side. She has not had the time to dig into our public assistance side, and that's primarily, so we work with long-term care and Medicaid, and right now we're still sending that information up to the prosecutor's office for review. They do a great job. Sometimes it's more of a time-sensitive situation, that if we had a local in-house attorney, they could review the documents and keep it going.
But you have one that does that, right?
I'm sorry?
You have one attorney currently.
I have one attorney currently, but they are probably 99% focused on children's services and adult protective services. So I'm asking for a second to pick up the additional workload in children's services and APS, and then also look.
Where's that being done now?
The backup, we just don't have it. Nicole's just working a lot of hours. We're asking for a lot of continuances if needed, or asking the prosecutor for backup. Having one attorney, you know, if she needs a day off, if she's sick, vacation, we don't have anyone to back that
Does that
up.
come out of federal and state dollars?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, this is not, any of these requests are not going to be increasing our ask from county general fund. It's just us managing the money we receive from the general fund and the state and federal dollars. Income maintenance worker 3, we do have someone resigning. We're not looking at replacing that, but we did add a position just in case someone else, you know, goes and we have to do a buyout and then replace them. We can probably do without one. I'm not sure if we promote from within, and there's you know, as Jill retires and people move up, we're definitely going to have to replace at least one of the IM3 workers. We are asking for an additional CCMEP WIOA caseworker because we were doing so much more with the CCMEP program and the on-the-job training program and then within the OMJ. And this would all be paid for from those dollars. We turn those funds back every year, so we have the funding to do that. It's just an RMS management to make sure they're hitting the right codes again. And then the fiscal specialist, we do have another retirement that we're expecting probably midsummer, is kind of the last I heard. We only have one fiscal specialist and one contract evaluator. So basically, we have one employee that's doing the majority of our any county budget operation and our payroll. She's extremely busy. She does a great job. She's probably just a handful of years out from retirement herself, and we would like to bring in a fiscal specialist if the contract evaluator retires. Probably not looking at replacing that, but having a fiscal specialist that can step in, it gives us some time to train as well before the other retirements come. Is that it? Oh. And then I'm looking for questions.
Any questions anyone have? So maybe I'm reading this incorrectly. You're showing an increase of 13%. What is the increase you're showing or asking for from this year to next? It says 13% increase for 2022 on the Job and Family GF. Is that what we're talking about? Or is there another sheet
Okay,
somewhere that I don't have?
I'm guessing that's the 187,000 for the MOE that the state's requiring.
It's your transfers, yeah.
It is right around 187,000.
And that's enough to cover these additional positions you're talking about?
Yes.
So you say the state is requiring that?
Yeah, this was in the biennium budget 2 years ago, and then when they just passed the new budget. So that was just something they came up with. I'm not sure where the agreements were, but in order for them to increase funding for protective services, this formula was developed. And I couldn't tell you how many years that our association was asking for additional. The state of Ohio used to be 50th in the country as far as funding for children's services, and it normally landed on the shoulders of the counties for placement costs. They did increase that. They basically doubled our allocations when they did that, but in order to do that, they also had this MOE so the counties
That's
would
what you were
invest.
talking about before.
Yeah.
I mean, so our hands are tied? I mean, we have to fund it? I mean, is it?
Yes.
Any
They
short
will
answer?
allow they'll allow counties who are in financial need to ask for an exception. I would not think that Delaware County would qualify for that.
Would qualify?
Yeah.
Which
Honestly, I don't
position
know
are we
how many
talking
counties.
It's just the general fund allocation
Oh,
that's
the general fund,
required.
okay. You talking about that average or the other
Yes.
one?
Yeah.
No, this is basically what the state is saying. The county has to supply,
Yes.
which again, state mandates drive me crazy.
During one of our fiscal meetings, they were discussing how when they did raise this, the extra state and federal allocations, there were some counties that were refusing to make their normal contribution, which was still putting burdens on those individual counties. So they came up with this to help level that out and smooth it out so that those counties couldn't just turn around and be like, we're not gonna help you.
Yeah.
The state's very good at spending our money.
Yeah.
They are.
So once you get down the road 4 years, it's gonna be a fixed amount. Once you get,
It bounces back and forth
Yes,
between,
I don't think it's fixed.
no,
Well,
it's not.
if
kept-
when 1 year
budget.
drops off, the next year comes
Yeah.
on, at one point, they're gonna be
But it's-
basically the same number every year. So your
Well-
average will be basically the same number every year.
It's kind of weird too, because it takes the calendar year, what we have had contributed during a calendar year, and it has to be paid out during the specific state fiscal year that that year was calculated for. So we have to ask for a certain portion of that before June 1st, or before June 30th, and then, the following year's MOE comes, so we have to, so it's fun. We have to take certain portions before June 30th, certain portions after July 1st, and it goes into different averages. I have the spreadsheet drug clear out, I don't about 10 years, and it's still bouncing back and forth between about 900-some thousand and 1.1 million. I mean, with the placement costs, we typically sit around 1.2 million in placement expenses. So some years will be better than others, but I mean, we're slowly trying to grow our actual fund itself. So as we receive overpayments and things like that, it'll help to contribute to that balance to help level that out. So it's a fun puzzle.
It gets back to what I said when you came in.
Yes, welcome to our world, right?
When Bob
I
hired
don't know if my
me-
fellow commissioners agree with me, but whether it's state or federal dollars or still taxpayer dollars,
Yeah.
I would, regarding these positions, you've been very good about coming to us and making your presentation. I don't feel comfortable approving the budget, we'll likely may do that, but I still think you went to the process to come and justify them in a more detailed fashion than what this allows for. My thoughts, the other two may disagree with me. Any comments on that, or?
I mean, if, we don't control it, that's the.
Well, these
challenge.
positions we're talking about adding, we theoretically, some of those positions weren't required federally, like the extra attorney, et cetera. We aren't required to do that.
No, you're not required
Yeah.
for that position. I do think, and I'm more than willing to come back and you know, I can introduce Nicole and kind of explain a little more about the workload. I do think there's a benefit with the in-house attorneys. I think as the county continues to grow and we're going to see our caseloads, not only in children's services, but public assistance grow, having people who are trained and ready that can cover, you know, they can assist our employees do their job better is very beneficial. I do know, you know, I know Nicole is working many hours to keep up with these. I think she has been great for our staff as far as what we can do in children's services cases, probably limiting the number of cases that we're actually opening. You saw that number's down a little bit, and reunifying quicker. It's just been very beneficial, and that's kind of where I'm hoping to go with this other, to have that backup, but then also help on the public assistance side as well. Then in my head, which in turn then allows the county prosecutor, who seems very busy themselves, to focus on, you know, on the civil side, if they're working with the townships and different things like that, it frees that time up to them as well. You know, Mark's done a wonderful job with us, but I know he's busy when it comes to reviewing our contracts or some of our trust agreements and things like that.
So how will you then, you just mentioned that these are not county funds that are going towards the list that you went down, so you just apply. How do you do that then? How do you get the money, like for the staff attorney or for the other people who you need, Bob?
Those funds are there.
Okay.
It's just coding it and to the appropriate allocations, and I didn't bring the whole list of allocations.
Okay.
It just goes
Yeah.
on. But it's really just making sure that we're charging against that. Now, some of the general fund dollars that we receive is also for operating, but we are not going to exceed or have to come back and look. It's really just managing our funding
Right.
to cover that.
Right.
And Bob,
I have confidence in you and managing your funding. I don't need the extra detail. I think if you need it, then do it.
how many extra positions are you asking for next year? The attorney and then,
The attorney and the CCMEP worker.
okay.
And the financial specialist it's going to cross over because we're going to have a retirement. So this financial specialist, again, would like to get that person in to get the training started before the retirement happens.
So it's filling the retirements and potentially restructuring at least one of the positions
Mhm.
with the trainer, quality assurance person?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
See, I think, again, this is very confusing to Commissioner Merrill's initial comments. I mean, and I completely agree, I've always been confused by this. But I think you've presented two budgets. One is the funds come from outside the county, and then the general fund subsidy that we're required to pay. And if you look at the funds outside the county, the increase is about 3%. I think that kind of okay, we're required to provide some level of oversight of the funding that comes from outside the county, in addition to the county's direct funding. And, you're increasing 3%, I think, if I'm reading the numbers correctly.
I'd have to look at Jen on the.
Yeah, I mean,
That sounds about right, yes.
I look at Karen,
Yeah, this is all the,
and that's,
everything besides the general fund we're showing when you
It's going-
combine all
Okay.
together, 3% increase.
it's going from 10,000,003 to 10,000,006, which is 3%. And that's what we're required to provide an oversight of, an explanation, which you've done. So in my mind, that's a reasonable increase, given the growth and the activity and so on and so on. And then the 1,000,006 or 1,000,003 something that we're required to, 1,000,006 that we're required to pay. Again, it sounds like we're required to pay it, so there's not a whole lot we can do about that. So anyway, it's complicated, but it's actually big picture kind of straightforward,
Yeah.
if I understand it correctly.
Is there any other questions?
Doing a great job.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
couldn't do it without.
Very trying time.
The help of everyone over there. Jen's been great. She's been here 2 years now, and just the staff throughout. I mean,
Oh,
honestly,
good.
very lucky with the
Good.
staff that we have.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We have nothing else before us, so we will be in recess until 1 o'clock, when we will resume the budget